Hi, this is Conrad Miller, MD, and you're watching your Fukushima update, January 17th, 2013. Our last one was from June from 2012. I've done a little research over this time. I know you've all asked for updates in between, and I finally have something for you. I have Nick Fisher with me today. He's going to talk about the marine effects from Fukushima. But I just wanted to tell you that according to Lucas Hickson, the units 1 through 3 are still leaking a little bit. They're trying to maintain a cold shutdown there. In other words, the water below boiling, that's cold shutdown. But there's still a little bit of leakage. They're taking some of the water in the low-lying areas from outside the plant and spraying it up the hill. I don't know how much that helps. So it's still in the groundwater, it's still in the rivers, it's still going out into the Pacific. Maybe not as terribly as we thought, but Nick will tell us more about that. The basic thing is that the cold shutdown is not really a final end of the early stage of what's going on there. There's supposed to be an early stage, a mid-stage, and a late stage if you were working with the EPA, for example. So it's still in the early stage because of two things. The source of the leakage is still not controlled, and the source release of the leakage and the radiation is still not controlled. In fact, according to Lucas, the cores of the reactors are not being imaged. They're not in the reactor vessel. They can't find them in the containment. So they may be at the bottom of the containment. That's one place they can't quite reach with their imaging, or they could be melted down further underneath the containment. That's reactors 1, 2, and 3, I believe. And then the fourth reactor we know has the fuel pool sitting about 100 feet up above the ground with a bulge in it, and that's still emitting particles into the air of the different radionuclides. They're putting a buttress around it so it won't collapse, because that was the big worry there, because that's the biggest worry right now at the plants in Fukushima, Daiichi. In Japan, they're saying, at least for the area around Fukushima, that it's okay to get exposed to 20 millisieverts per year. But actually, that's equal to 2 REMs. And background radiation, which most of us are exposed to in most places on the Earth, is about 200 millirems. Your X-ray tech has a badge, and he or she wears that to warn them when their exposure is too great. So they're allowed 5 REMs per year, or 5,000 millirems. Japan allowing 20 millisieverts per year, which is equal to about 2 REMs, or 2,000 millirems. That's about 10 times the background radiation that most of us are exposed to. So that's not too good, especially for children and pregnant mothers in Japan or anywhere. Just remember, 200 millirems, that's your usual background radiation. And the United States has gone into Japan trying to get them to reopen their plants. The NRC is actually trying to induce them to do that, but the Japanese don't want to overall. They've opened 2 plants in Ojai, and that was in July, to a lot of protesting, but the people in Japan look like they don't really want to open the rest of them. But the business community wants them to. So that's the basic update. Now Nick Fisher is here from Stony Brook. Hi, Nick.
Hello.
And Nick's been doing research on tuna. He's the man who did that study that was released, I believe, in August of 2012.
Actually, May.
May in 2012.
Yeah.
About some fish, some of the tuna fish, probably from Japan's waters, that migrated over to San Diego and had small amounts of cesium in them. So what have you been finding overall in the marine fish from the various other people that you've spoken to and other research?
Okay, so hello everybody. My focus, I'm a marine biologist by training. My work kind of falls in the cracks between biology and chemistry. And we've been looking at the bioaccumulation of long-lived radionuclides in marine organisms, both in waters off Japan and in some migratory species that cross the entire Pacific Ocean, actually swim from Japan all the way to California and Mexico. So let me talk first about those migratory fish, because that's the story that got the most attention. In August of 2011, some 4 months after the tsunami wrecked the nuclear power plant at Fukushima, we caught 15 Pacific bluefin tuna in waters off San Diego. It's important to realize that Pacific bluefin tuna spawn in waters of the Western Pacific, such as in waters off Japan. And then at the age of about 1 year old to 1.5 years old, many of them swim across the entire Pacific to the Eastern Pacific, basically following food. And they get big in waters in the Eastern Pacific off North America, and then eventually they swim back to Japan to spawn. We collected 15 Pacific bluefin tuna in 2011, 4 months after the accident, measured whatever radionuclides we could find in these using what's called gamma spectrometry. So we're only looking at gamma-emitting radioisotopes. And the only two isotopes we found were cesium-134 and cesium-137. I have to say I was very surprised to see anything, but there was clear, unequivocal evidence 100% of these new migrants from Japan carried both isotopes of cesium.
Now that means, since you have both of the isotopes, one of them is much shorter acting, so it has to come from Fukushima or something.
Yes, so let me comment on that. What we found, cesium-134 and cesium-137 were released at a ratio of about 1:1 from the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the water. And in waters off Japan in June of 2011, we collected biota, both small fish as well as plankton, which are microscopic, in this case, microscopic animals. And we found radioactive cesium, both 134 and 137, in all of those samples that we collected at a ratio of 1:1. So we see 137 and 134 in Pacific bluefin tuna. We did not see any other radioisotopes or gamma-emitting radioisotopes. We did not look for other isotopes in the bluefin. The bluefin had a total radioactivity of artificial radionuclides from Fukushima of about 10 becquerels per kilogram dry weight. A becquerel is a measure of radioactivity equal to 1 disintegration per second. So 10 becquerels per kilogram sounds scary until you look at the naturally occurring radionuclides that are also present in fish and that have always been present in fish before there was ever any nuclear power. And we particularly measured potassium-40, which is also a gamma emitter. And the radioactivity of the bluefin from the radioactive cesium from Fukushima was only about 3% of the potassium-40 that was present in those same identical fish. So essentially the radioactivity in the bluefin tuna by the time they got to California was only 3% of that, of the naturally occurring potassium-40. We also evaluated what could the risks be to people eating those bluefin tuna, and of course it would depend on how much you eat. So if you're an average seafood consumer, you would get a dose of about 1 microsievert per year, whereas your dose from, if you're an avid seafood consumer, would be, say, 5 times higher.
Now, a microsievert's about 1,000th of a sievert, of a millisievert.
A thousandth of a millisievert.
Right, and we were talking about millisieverts before. So 1 microsievert or 5 microsieverts per year for you tuna eaters, it's not that much because you get exposed to 2,000 microsieverts as background radiation per year, unless you eat tuna every day. Nick just submitted a new research paper, which you can't talk about yet because it hasn't been accepted. Anything else you'd like to say, Nick?
No, it's been a pleasure.
Same here.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much for watching. This is your Fukushima update, January 17th, 2013. We'll see you next time, and maybe we'll have Nick back.
Very
Thanks
good.
for watching.
All right, thank you.